When did you first get interested in directing, and did you do so to protect your writing?
In some ways, yes, but I guess when I was in my first year at AFI, I wrote a short that was extremely personal to me and that I saw very clearly in my mind. And then a director directed it that I think is a very talented director, that I actually was like so happy to be working with him. And it was like having my limbs pulled off, like watching it being directed by him, because I was like, oh, I see it so clearly. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I have a background in acting as well, and I know actors. So I just felt like, oh no, I really need to direct my own material. And I don't feel like I need to do that with every project. I feel like I could write and let someone else direct. But for things that are extremely personal, I feel like I really needed to do it.
Does that mean The Pretty One is a very personal story for you?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a very personal story for me. Not autobiographical, but in the sense that there was like I had my best friend and somebody who I dated for 3 years passed away in our early 20s, and I felt this sense when he passed that I had to really make something out of my life and sort of come into my own and learn how to sort of be who I wanted to be, and that was because of that loss. And I feel like that's a very close to what Laurel's journey is in the movie, is coming into her own after a great loss.
After a loss.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Do you have any early influences as far as filmmaking? I mean, Nora Ephron, Penny Marshall, and trying to follow in their footsteps, or were they helpful in your process in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I love Nora Ephron.
The late Nora
I know,
Ephron,
it's really sad. Yeah, it's a great loss, I think, for film lovers. But yeah, I mean, I really found, through my 20s, I really connected to other female filmmakers. Like, I love Nicole Holofcener, Lisa Cholodenko, Jane Campion. I just felt I really connect to those movies, to female filmmakers. So I feel like seeing those movies and seeing films made about complex women, I found myself really inspired when I saw those filmmakers' films. Yeah.
Now, your short film, Spoonful. If IMDb is to be believed, you made that on a very small budget.
Yes.
And yet it made the Sundance Film Festival, which proves that you don't need a lot of money to make a great film.
No.
Do you feel the same way as your career gets bigger? Do you feel the same way about features? Do you think you can make a good feature with a small budget?
I think you can. I think you need more, obviously more.
You need more money, right, yeah.
But yeah, I think you can, and I think that's a kind of a creative challenge for a screenwriter, that, if you minimize your locations, if you simplify, if you rise to the challenge of those limitations, that you can do a lot of creative things on a very small budget. I think that but you have to have a mind towards it when you're writing, I think.
Well, you don't want to censor yourself in the writing, but at the same time, you can't have two Ferraris crashing into each other, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
You could have two Chevys, but if you need a car, but you don't need the Ferrari, so you can bring it down.
Right.
What do you think is harder for you, directing or writing?
I think writing is harder for me.
Really?
Directing has its own challenges, but it's sort of like when you're directing, you're on a train and you just got to get the job done, and you're like, you just got to ride with it, and obviously it's physically demanding because you're working long hours and you're trying to make your schedule. But with writing, it's more of an internal struggle. It's developing the discipline, making sure you have it right, getting feedback, like digesting the feedback and turning it into something. It's a long process.
Well, with writing, it's never over.
No,
you can always, the longer you sit on it, the more you want to work on it. Where directing, it's got to be over.
It's finite. It's like math versus English or something. Where there's like in some ways there's an answer to the. It's
analogy,
you gotta just with directing. It's like you just gotta go do it. And with writing, you're on your own kind of schedule.
That. I like that. And you're the first one to say that. But it's true. It's true. As a writer, I know. Yeah. Maybe a little off the subject, but what do you think is harder, drama or comedy?
Oh gosh. I think they're both hard in their own ways. I think comedy, because sometimes what seems funny to you on the page doesn't translate when you're actually doing it. Mm-hmm. And so that is a learning process, I think. And sometimes, and it's like, also comedy has to come from, I feel like comedy comes from pain. It has to come from like a real place, or at least the kind of comedy that I like. So it's like, how do you and then it requires a lot of skill from an actor. It's like, how do you connect emotionally to this, what's happening that is funny, but also be funny at the same time, you know? So, yeah, you know.
Well, okay, well, despite the popularity of Catherine Bigelow, say, with The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, a lot of festivals still have separate categories for just female directors. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that female directors are getting the proper respect in the business?
Well, I'm not quite sure what the root of the, you know, how few female filmmakers there actually are making films every year.
There's more men than women, so obviously more men are going to get in festivals. But percentage-wise, I'm just curious if, you know, there's some kind of balance as far as, you know, like I was in the Tribeca Lounge, you know, the other day getting the paperwork, and, you know, they have comedies, dramas, romances, New York stories, and then they have female directors. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, it's kind of like, because I'm a poker player, and women poker players hate it when you call them female poker players. Yeah. They're poker players, not female poker players. Right. So I just was wondering if female directors felt the same.
I sometimes feel like, you know, that we get sort of ghettoized in that way, where it's like, oh, you're a female director, and I'm like, well, when I'm on set, I don't feel like I'm a female director. I feel like I'm a director, and so I don't really feel that on set. I feel like in some ways I want to identify as a female director because I want to stand in like solidarity with other women, and I feel like I'm honored to be part of that group. So but at the same time, I mean, I really dislike the term chick flick. Okay. I feel like, I know it's cute and it's a little soundbite, but I don't like being referred to as a chick, and I don't like being and I feel like it's a derogatory term in some ways, and I agree. And I don't like it. So something like, I don't like that. I don't like, you know, I wouldn't like my work being described as a chick flick or whatever.
Well, I wouldn't call The Pretty One a chick flick.
Yeah.
What I like about The Pretty One is that it takes place, the story could have been told in any era, the 1930s, the 1940s, present day. Mm-hmm. It has elements of dark comedy. Yeah. It has elements of romance. And it's got elements, I think, of a little film noir, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Is that something that came out in the writing, or that developed through the directing?
Definitely in the writing. I was going for a very specific tone. You know, the kind of comedies that I love are stuff like Lars and the Real Girl or Little Miss Sunshine, and things that have like a darkness to them that are emotional. And so I really, I feel like those are the movies I find funniest, and those are the movies I also find most moving. And somehow it's like through the comedy, it moves you. It's very strange. So yeah, I feel like that the sort of dark. It's just, and it's also my sensibility. I just have a dark sense of humor.
Well, you know, there's a couple of film noirs. One in particular called No Man of Her Own with Barbara Stanwyck, 1950, where she's on a train, and her boyfriend has just broken up with her, and she meets this married couple on the train, and they're on their way to the husband's rich family who have never met his wife. And while they're in the bathroom, the wife takes off her wedding ring, and she puts it down, and you know, Barbara Stanwyck says, "Oh, that's such a beautiful ring," and she goes, "Oh, try it on." She tries it on, and then the train derails and crashes. The couple dies. Whoa. So Barbara Stanwyck takes the place of the woman
dead
and
wife?
goes to the rich husband's parents thinking they'll take care of me.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. It's got some film noir elements to it. Even though people think film noir has to be dark and black and white, no. The film noir is in the story.
Yeah.
And like you said, it came out in the writing, not the directing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that proves it.
Well, that sounds really interesting. A movie. Similar sort of setup.
Yeah. Were you concerned about the technical challenges of doing a movie where you have one actress playing these two parts? And were you worried that it might look cheesy?
Yeah, of course. You don't know how it's going to. You really don't know how it's going to turn out. You just try to do your best, the best you can with the materials you have.
In the old '60s sitcoms, when someone's cousin came to town, you'd see that line.
Oh, the line.
It'd be the same actor.
Yeah.
So obviously we've advanced a lot past that. But I got to believe that always goes through your mind when Zoe's here and Zoe's here.
Right.
I still don't know, nor should I, because I'm not a director, how you manage that crossover. Like one of them walks past the other.
Yeah, you got to shoot. You have to actually. It's 3 separate plates. So you have to shoot it with Zoe playing one character, Zoe playing the other character, and then you have to shoot a blank plate. So with nothing in it. And then it's about integrating the 3 plates.
Something to put in the bonus features when the DVD comes out.
Oh yeah, it's pretty crazy though. How and it was very challenging technically because it takes 3 times as long to shoot a scene when they're together.
How long did the movie take to shoot?
We shot for 24 days.
Oh, that's not
We had a
long.
pretty good. We had. I mean, for
considering the technical aspects of it, that's not long.
But we did all of the sort of heavy VFX work in the first 8 days. So that was the first 10 days, more or less.
In other words, when Zoe and when Laurel and Audrey were both in a shot. We did that first.
Yeah.
Okay, like the over-the-head bed shot.
Yeah.
And the one that's in the book, in the Tribeca book.
Right.
That's a picture they use. As the writer, you had, and as the writer and director, you had the rare chance to make sure that your script gets shot the way you wrote it. So how much freedom did you give the actors to ad-lib or improvise?
I gave them quite a bit of freedom. Jake Johnson in particular, was interested in the film because I was going to give him that opportunity. So, they stayed to the sort of structure of each scene. They stayed really tight. And sometimes I would ask them to stay on book in certain scenes. But then in other scenes, like the scene where they are in the pool together and they're improvising a bit, when they're pretending to be
Mr. Brown,
Mr. and Mrs. Brown.
Yeah.
So I gave them, I feel like, and the things that they add to it are just so fun to discover,
Very accomplished. Jake's from New Girl.
Yeah.
And Zoe, Zoe's one of those actresses. She can say a word and make it like when she's standing in that scene when she first encounters Jake.
Yeah.
She's standing and she just goes, "Look." That must have been in the script because it has to be. That's what his apartment is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just that one line got me. I rewound it like a couple of times. Books. She's very good with that.
She's so funny.
Yeah.
That was the scene that I was laughing behind the counter. I mean, behind the counter, a lot with.
No, again, there's very few actresses that could pull off a line like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could have come off corny or it could have come off funny. But, funny.
Yeah.
And just, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the scene where she goes, "Oh, and that's a little door."
Yeah.
That was funny too. But later in the movie, when she's getting the lay of the land, and she starts to builds her confidence.
Yeah.
She shows a little door, and then she does this cute little backwards walk.
Yeah, back into it.
Was that improv, or was that something you?
That was in the script too, actually.
Right.
Like she. Well, the way she did it is not in the script, but she shimmied. Right. But it's like, I think in the script it said she backs into the space.
No, the way she backed in.
But the way she backed, that's all hers. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're getting Zoe's performance very multifaceted. She does drama, comedy.
Yeah.
And she could be over the top without being over the top. Was she your first choice for the role?
Oh yeah. I spent a long time casting that role, like 6 months, and I met with a lot of really wonderful actresses, and but it just never felt quite right. And then she came in the room, and she was just had me on the floor. Like, it was just so funny and so real. And then I looked to my producer Steven, like at the end of her audition, and I was like, oh, well, there you go. There she is. That's our girl.